How does it feel to now just be the Clapback Queen in Congress?
I don't know about that.
What do you think about America being tired of us sending money to Israel?
Okay, so since you want to talk about it.
I feel like we just getting played in our face.
Are you kidding me? Like, they literally are playing in your face.
Is Marjorie Taylor Greene racist?
Child, listen.
The House just passed that they're gonna mandate everybody to go to the draft.
But here's the deal.
Why is your committee always on social media?
Sir, I think it's time for me to go. I'm just telling you the facts, and they can go Google it.
The T is truth, and I feel like you are the truth.
Media covers your story will be built from the ground up. King, dominate. He's the one, the only, motherfucking Jason Lee.
Welcome back to an all-new episode of the Jason Lee Show. Now, everybody on the internet calls me the Clapback King, and I think I kind of rule the land, but there's one person, only one person that I think has gone more viral than me with one moment. And it's my next guest. Please welcome the Congresswoman. Put some respect on her name, Jasmine Crockett. How are you?
I'm doing well. It's so good to see you.
Okay, so you're literally becoming more famous than everybody in my phone from doing real work, the real work. Not that all of us out here on the internet ruling these internet streets aren't, but you're doing the real work of really helping to reshape this messy world we live in. So first, I thank you for that. But how does it feel to now just be the Clapback Queen in Congress?
It feels weird, for sure. Because listen, you know, Marjorie clearly never went to school with any black folk because she would have known better. Like, we grew up doing this stuff. Right. But, you know, what's interesting is a lot of people that are watching probably have no idea about the fact that we've obviously met before. And the last time we were together here in LA was when I learned about you and your election and your run. And for me, I'm like, what's wrong with him? Why does he want to do that, you know? But I do think that it takes a special person who really has a heart to serve to actually be in these positions. And I think that that's what's been missing. Mm-hmm. So when you see me clapping back, it's because I care about the job. I care about my constituents. I care about this country. So no, I'm not gonna let you say crazy things and just let it ride, because that's how we got to the place where we're sitting here saying, are we going to continue to have a democracy? So for me, clapping back is literally the fight that a lot of people have been looking to see in Democrats, because they consistently called us weak. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, we not weak. We just spend a lot of time in our books and do our things and whatever. But like, when somebody literally comes up with what I would consider to be fighting words, you gonna get a fight.
But let me tell you, this is what I love about you. We follow all of the things trending and all the things viral, but we create, you know, a lot of the news that people read about in pop culture. But, you know, I worked in labor for about 11 years. So I know the importance of politics and being active in your government, not sitting back pointing fingers. Oh, the gas is high, it must be the president's fault. Like, okay. Everything in your life as you learn or go through your day is not the president's fault.
Correct.
Most people don't even know how government works.
Correct.
So when I started following your moments, and it wasn't just the one that's written on your shirt. By the way, as a gay man, I think you have a gay man in your body, because I'm gay and can't even repeat what you said, and it's on your shirt, it's on my cards, it'll be in the prompter, but you read her for Phil. We don't get to that. But the point of that is that what I loved about following you even before that moment was, people need to start paying attention to politics. Yeah. And I feel like what you're doing is literally getting young people's attention to the world that is TikToking them by. Yeah. So is your delivery intentional to get to the young people?
It's absolutely not. That's actually the weird part. You know, there have been interviews specifically around the viral moments, because I think arguably I've had more viral moments than anyone in Congress this session. And so, you know, people have been curious. They're like, what is the sauce? Like, how does this come about, and that kind of stuff. And, you know, honestly, it's my authenticity. It's my real passion. It's my real emotions that speak in a very raw way. But it's never about trying to create a moment. It is literally being in the moment. And I am literally sitting and serving with some idiots that will do crazy things. And to sit there calmly, if somebody says something, you know, the very next hearing that I had, I didn't even know that it started trending a little bit, my words about diversity, equity, and inclusion, because I had another colleague that was just like, we need to stop with all this diversity stuff. This is why we don't have qualified people. And I was like, I'm sorry, what?
And they say this out loud in front of people.
Correct.
Right. It's like for people to watch.
Right. So I'm like I can't hear that and then be like, oh, okay, well, the gentleman from, Georgia just said, I can't do that, right? Because to me, you're attacking me. And you're attacking other people that look like me. And I represent a lot of people that look like me. And you are ignorant as hell. So I am going to correct you in that moment. And so I wanted to clarify for him. And I did the read in such a way where I laid out my qualifications, which I know the vast majority of them come nowhere near. So don't talk about the fact that I'm a woman or that I'm black and then try to say I'm not qualified because of my diversity. No, you're not qualified. But the thing is, you used to having some silver spoon passed on to you because you've enjoyed white privilege.
You realize you're reading right now and you're not even trying. Could we just give it up for the Clapback Queen? But again, I think what people fail to get and why we chose to honor you at the Impact Awards is that you're more than just a viral moment. You're an attorney, you're educated. And I think, at least I think, but does being an attorney prepare you for laying out your arguments?
Absolutely.
And they get your qualifications. So when you get elected, do they then get a tip sheet that goes, okay, because for me, when I'm going to interview somebody, I want a tip sheet. I need to know everything about this person because you really need to know who you're dealing with. Do they get, she's an attorney, she's this, do they?
Well, I will tell you this. We have heard the Republicans say more than once, we know y'all got all the attorneys on that side, basically admitting that their minds are not equipped to handle ours. So it's really funny when they get flustered about that. Because we do have a really educated and qualified, and not to say that you've got to have a law degree to be, educated or anything like that, but they know that they really are no match for us when it comes to our mental prowess. I will say they don't get any of that information, and I don't think that they really even thought about me very much. It was just okay, another random black girl, and I'm pretty sure that's pretty much all they thought about, and I'm sure that they agree with all of the MAGA trolls that sit online and they say things like, oh, you a DEI hire and all this other nonsense or whatever.
Who says that?
Oh, that's what the MAGA trolls do. They don't understand how elections work, honey.
That you were a DEI hire?
Yes. That's why they believe that the election was stolen in the first place. They're the ones that need to go to the civics classes first. But everybody needs to take a few classes here and there because I'm tired of Democrats being blamed for everything that's going wrong in this country. And I'm like, have you checked the House? Do you know who allegedly runs it? It ain't us. Is them.
Wait, so first you started as an attorney. Well, no, you were an attorney, or you are an attorney, but
yes.
You were a practicing attorney.
Yes.
You're not practicing anymore.
I'm not allowed to.
Okay, this is what I'm saying. I'm running for city council, but I still get to do the Jason Lee show at city council. Yeah. So I still get to make all my money. As an attorney, somebody who went to school, passed the bar.
I need y'all to feel my pain that Jason is rubbing it in right now, that I'm on a fixed government income. And that he oh, no, I'm going to still get my bag. I'm gonna still get mine.
But I mean, I bring that up for two reasons. One, you are making an extreme sacrifice to serve the country.
Yeah.
And I remember watching somewhere where people were making this idiotic conversation around you profiting for your campaign to continue to serve people. Yeah. And I think people that don't know politics don't even know how regulated money in your world is. I've learned. I don't like it, but I respect it. Yeah. And the other thing is I think that, again, highlighting that sacrifice, it's a sacrifice a lot of Americans won't make to help other people.
Yeah, no, it's so in full transparency, because people can Google, we get paid $174,000 a year. And the way that the law is set up, we actually have an automatic COLA that's built in to the law. So we are supposed to have our money get adjusted all the time. For the last 18 years, they have written out the COLA. So we have been stuck at $174,000.
Who is they, the government?
The Congress.
You.
The Congress. Not me, because I didn't talk to them.
Yeah.
And they well, the people ain't going to vote for us. I'm listen, we ain't going to have nowhere to go in the first place if we don't get no more money.
Right.
And I know that people are y'all already make so much money, and I get that the vast majority of Americans are not necessarily making that type of money. But what people don't understand is that we actually have to pay to live in D.C. So there were members that were living in their offices because you have to pay to live in the district that you come from. And depending on like where you come from, like if you represent, say, California, where housing costs are a lot higher than, say, the representative out of Idaho. So $174,000 may take you.
So you have to keep your house where where your district is.
Correct.
And be able to live where you have to go to work.
Correct. And most people, when you go to your job, you get like a per diem, you get like all these things so that you're not out of, you get so that you're not out of money. We actually take that out of our salary. So like that's been a whole, so like the 174, and then child, listen.
Hold on, plus you gotta pay taxes to this government that you're a part of.
Correct. Like it is a lot. So they just passed a House admin rule to give us some reimbursement. It's not full reimbursement for sure, and they tax the reimbursement, which I was like, how you gonna tax my reimbursement for my? It's like, so it's crazy, and we know that the cost, like most of us complain because to live where we work is actually more expensive than where we live, right? Yeah. So like DC is more expensive than Dallas. Yeah. So like for my job house, it costs more than my house. So
it is a sacrifice that you're taking for bettering the country, and that's not the narrative people want to talk about when it comes to people of color. But then most people who are in politics or in the government are non-black people, non-people of color, who either come from money or have made a lot of money and can afford to run and continue to keep their interests moving forward, which is why the country looked the way it looked.
Exactly.
Right?
You just went through a whole lot right there, but yes.
Why do you think people don't get that?
I think it's because we don't talk about it. And, that's not the sexy stuff. That's not the viral stuff, right? And in the age of TikTok, we want everything to be quick and we want to be entertained. And there's nothing entertaining about that. But if you really care about why we're crumbling, if you really care about why you don't feel like there's someone that can understand you and your plight, then you really do have to dig through the layers and better understand how this system is set up. And frankly, as far as I'm concerned, the system is working exactly as it was designed to make sure that certain people's positions and realities are not considered in the way that we legislate. They are not caring about really what I would consider to be the vast majority of Americans.
So you're a Delta.
Yes.
So was pledging for Delta, you're a Delta too? Look at her over there. The person that she brought, Dr. Moon, is a Delta. She's behind the scenes. As soon as I say Delta, she's lit up. Now Delta, y'all are like a gang. I'm sorry, there is no other way. It's like a gang.
We are.
Was pledging to be Delta harder than this?
No. No. Because you know where you're going with Delta. You know the rich history and legacy of Delta, and you know that you're going to get there, right? Like, you know that you're going to cross, right? Like, just keep your eye on the prize, and you know that you're going to get to the promised land. You're going to get to Delta land. With this, I don't know where we're going. And so that is really scary because I can fight. I can push. I can try to talk to as many people as possible, but I don't know if we're going to win. I don't know if future generations will be better off or worse off. Like, that is my fear that I live with every day that I serve, is that I can't reach enough people to really get people to understand that I'm not here for money. I wish I could be. But that's why I'm probably going to be out. We can't do this forever.
Out of what? You're not going to be out of this. Let me tell you why you can't. First of all.
Did you find my rich husband?
Wait, let me tell you. But let me tell you something. But the thing that you're doing that's different than a lot of other people, if you really look at like Michelle, and I'm talking about the Obamas, and Barack, and the people who've actually cemented legacies and connected to the people, at some point, it does, the investment in the people, there's a return from the people. I see it, because you're connecting in a way that I think AOC did when she first started. I don't really hear much about her anymore. And maybe because you're eclipsing her, not to start any beef over there where y'all at, because AOC was.
I was about to say, who you think had my back?
In many ways, you inspire me. And I think about my run for city council. This is what you're going to get. I'm not going to come in Gucci, but I'm going to address.
Because you are Gucci down.
I am to the side. I'm going to address the issue because you're fighting. You're literally fighting for people who who you earn their trust. And so when I see you, I'm like, you know what? You could tell she's not making it about her. The news is now making it about you, which gives you the spotlight to promote what you're doing for them. So I get it. Eric Mays, are you a fan of Eric Mays?
Of course.
I post his clips. You're far more gracious than he was, because he Michelle said they go low, we go high. He said they go low, we go to hell.
Yes, he did.
You kind of said something similar to that, so we're close. All right. When you're on the oversight committee, for people that don't know what an oversight committee is, what is an oversight committee?
It ain't what y'all done seen, that's for sure. Oversight is all about everything that we actually care about when we talk about government. It's literally having oversight, making sure that there's not misuse, abuse, and fraud in our government. And typically we find it in defense, where we continue to pour more and more money into, and we don't have them fix it. So we just lose so many tax dollars there. And of course the Republicans don't like to talk about it too often. But we're supposed to look at all agencies and kind of figure out what's going on. Definitely, we're almost like the auditing team, right? Excuse me. So what's interesting is that when they started talking about impeaching the president, meaning Biden, not the other one that actually was successfully impeached, well, kind of. He was impeached, but then he wasn't convicted twice. When they decided they were going to do that, that should come through judiciary. That's a judiciary thing. They decided to put it into oversight, judiciary, and into Ways and Means, which Ways and Means is where we do all the taxing. So are those 3 different committees? 3 different committees.
And 3 different meetings about the same thing?
Yes.
So can something go through one, be found there's no issue, then go through another, there's an issue, and then the third there's no issue? Because they're all looking at for different reasons?
Yeah, so Ways and Means is taxing. So they wanted to get access to all the tax records and things like that. And so they potentially could have found something and said, oh, we're going forward because it was some funny business with the money. And then judiciary can look at a lot of things with oversight and judiciary are kind of the same. I will say oversight, we have oversight over everything, including Department of Justice and every federal agency you can think of. And so what's interesting is that judiciary should have been the committee that really everybody kind of saw and heard from. But Comer is so jacked up, child. And we have the rambunctious freshman on the oversight committee. And I mean, we have a really skilled set of freshmen on oversight.
On the Democrat side.
On the Democrat side, okay. Yes, honey.
Because that other side. And I'm not even hating on the Republicans, but like, Marjorie is a clown. There's no other way to describe the behavior. She's so disrespectful and intentionally comes off racist to me that it's like night and day.
Yeah, no, it is. I mean, so Dan Goldman, he is our prosecutor as far as I'm concerned, but he's a lawyer, former federal prosecutor. He's a freshman. He's on oversight. He actually participated in the prosecution of Donald Trump's impeachment. And then you have Jared Moskowitz, who is like the class clown. He is the one that's always going to crack the jokes. But he's also a trained attorney out of Florida. Then you have myself, and I'm kind of just like the real one that's going to always say what everybody else is thinking. And then you also have Summer Lee, who's also a licensed attorney. She's on the committee. You've got Maxwell Frost, our only Gen Zer that's in Congress. And so, and then you've got Robert Garcia, who is a lot. But Robert Garcia is amazing and out of Florida, and he's the one that is going to bring pop culture into the committee. So he went viral for like a Bravo Real Housewives moment that he did or something. Child, he be on all kinds of stuff. So it's interesting because we all add a different flavor, but like you mix it together and it's like the best mix that you ever experienced, but it's been the worst mix for them because we have embarrassed the shit out of them. So it's been great because there's been this highlight on you can have competent, outspoken young people in Congress. And I think that the message for so long had been if you are not old and you haven't served on every single level of government before, then Congress isn't for you.
And white.
And white. And male. All those things. Yep.
Yep. Okay, so why is your committee always on social media? Like, I don't know. I don't think we know anything else in the government besides Trump getting convicted, Hunter Biden's now convicted and not getting a pardon from daddy. And your committee, is this like
that is a list?
Yeah. Why is this committee the one everybody's watching? Is it the energy?
It's just because it's drama. It's drama. I mean, every MAGA idiot is on the committee except for Matt Gaetz. Matt Gaetz is the only one that's not on there. But you've got Boebert, you've got MTG, you've got Paul Gosar, you've got Jim Jordan, you've got Paulina Luna. You've got Byron Donalds, who is trying to figure out if he want to be black or not. Child. R.I.P. Anyway, so you got all these people that are trying to be MAGA darlings. You got Higgins. You got just so many of them. So it's a natural clash because you then have a ton of the progressive stars, right? Like AOC is on there. Jamie Raskin. You've got Ayanna Pressley. You've got Rashida Tlaib. You've got like it's like a class. You've got Cori Bush. Like, so you have like almost all of the squad except for Jamal Bowman and Ilhan. Like almost all the squad is on there, and then you've got like the freshmen that are bringing the heat. Like, it's a lot going on.
One of your colleagues that's on that committee, I can't remember his name, but he was in that documentary, The Sixth, where he came and voted the day after his son was buried. He actually was sitting next to the chairman when you read Marjorie and kind of laughed. He caught it. You know what I'm talking about?
Jamie Raskin.
Okay, that may have been him. His son had passed. His son was buried.
He lost his son,
and his son was buried the day before he had to come and vote on the election. But anyway, I was watching The Sixth. How is it that people in Congress can watch what happened on January 6th and not say, one, it's domestic terrorism, and two, it was driven by Donald Trump?
Oh, people in Congress can. They just not they just not Republicans. Yeah,
Right.
The Democrats do.
Right. No, repeatedly. But how can the Democrats defend it? And those of you that know what I'm talking about, there was an election that happened where they were going to certify that Joe Biden won the election and in 2016, and President Trump at the time basically gaslit everybody to go in and taking over the Congress and to taking over the Capitol, and people climbed up the Capitol. People were killed at the Capitol, and this actually happened in America, and people just on the right just act like it didn't happen.
Yeah. So 2020. So we had the election, and
2020.
essentially,
Did I say 2016?
yes, that was
when Donald Trump got
Hillary.
in.
Yeah, child.
Okay, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
child.
Every life stopped. For
I
me in
mean, listen,
2016.
I know, right? Like PTSD is settling in right now. No, so essentially, people complain about the Electoral College all the time. Say like, this don't make no sense because Donald Trump did not win the popular vote when he got in 2016. He also lost the popular vote again in 2020. And then honestly, there's not been a Republican to win the popular vote in a minute, right? So even though Republicans have been elected, it's not because the vast majority, like California is one of those states that like weighs in very heavily, and it kind of just don't matter after a point, right? And so like let's level set on that. And so essentially we get these, everybody goes out, they vote, millions and millions of votes are cast, and then there's like, you get, 38 electoral votes, you get 40 electoral votes and that kind of stuff. And then there's these electors that go to their state capitals and they say, I am casting my electoral vote for, and it's whoever the state voted for. So it like gets, squished down. So millions of people voted, it gets squished down to these few people. And then you're supposed to certify on the federal level. It's just more like, it's more mechanical than it is, or ceremonial than it is anything else. It's not really much for you to think about and do. It's just a ceremony. And they were like, we're not gonna do that. We're not gonna certify the election. And so it was a matter of them wanting to vote against what the people had done and literally subverting their vote, basically taking their voices away after they waited in rain, long lines, maybe heat, snow, whatever, depending on where they are. And I think that that's why you hear from the older generation that like, we have to vote in this election because our democracy is on the line. But I think it's difficult for people that number one, we're never engaged in the suffrage march or the civil rights movement and that kind of stuff to really conceptualize it, because democracy is not this tangible thing that you can reach out and touch. When I say they are not trying to make sure that you get another stimmy, like that's something you can reach out and touch. You like, oh, I understand what that means, right? Like, but like when you say democracy, it is this abstract thing, and it's a matter of what you've been taught the democracy is. And so it's very difficult to kind of get everybody on one accord about that, because we got ignorant people running around like, well, we ain't no democracy anyway. And I'm like, well, we ain't gonna be if we keep messing around with y'all.
But this is where I want to know, like, who's crazier when it comes to this subject? Women in this country or Republicans? Because Roe v. versus Wade is something I thought would have never been taken away from a right from women. And then there's still women saying, I'm going to vote for Republicans or Trump, who clearly supported a Supreme Court that overturned rights women had fought hard for. So who's the problem? Is it the women? Is it the rights? Is it the rights and the women? Who's crazier? Because Roe v. versus Wade getting overturned, having 5 sisters, when I believe we should live in a world where women make the decisions of what they do with their bodies. It's just natural for men. Men shouldn't have anything to say over that. Who messed that up?
So there's lots of arguments on this point. I am going to say that our disengagement as a collective messed this up, because what we do specifically on the Democratic side is we've got to get excited, right? So Obama came through and we like, yes, he giving us hope, right? Like everybody's like excited. Like we have to figure out, like right now, everybody's like, well, how you gonna get them off the couch and get them to vote for Joe and Kamala? Like it's all about like, we have to have like somebody or something that like gets us excited, versus really saying, you know what, it's that time of the year, gotta go vote. And that's really more so been where the Republicans have always been able to win out, because they don't have to be excited. They're like, oh, no, I'm looking out for my pockets. I'm gonna show up, because historically they have been the rich folk. They were the rich ones, and they want those Trump tax cuts. Like they want to live their best lives and forget the rest of y'all that ain't got no money, right? So, you know, but the thing is, we had these Christo fascist fools that decided, you know what, we want to do this because everybody should have to live under the rule that we have established through our random thinking about the Bible or whatever, right? They didn't do this overnight. This is something that they worked at for years and years and years. And they took advantage of the fact that Democrats have to get excited. Otherwise, they just won't show up.
But why are Democrats not mad when you can see a Republican, was it the Senate or who was it that blocked Obama from adding his Supreme Court justice, but then turned around and gave the same grace that they gave the grace to Trump that they wouldn't give to Obama? Like, absolutely. They're doing it in our face. This is the thing. I feel like we just getting played in our face and nobody's mad about it.
They do play in our faces. That's what I tell people. That's what Project 2025 is, though. They playing in our face. I'm like, this is like that guy that is like going to be this mass killer. There's going to be this active shooter situation.
And this is Trump.
Who's laid out his manifesto where he like, yo, so I'm coming in and I'm fucking all y'all up, right? Like, you reading the manifesto. That is what Project 2025 is.
And he could be doing it from prison. He could be calling it from prison.
And people like, it's cool though. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, they literally are playing in your face. They have laid it out. There's this whole manifesto of all the things that they want to do. And I want somebody to tell me what in Project 2025 is good for black folk. I want that. Please, somebody let me know. But it ain't nothing in there for us, okay? So they're telling you, and black people still like, it's kind of like when you talk about the women. There are always people that vote against their interest, right? Like, there are women that clearly, you know, and there's been some of them that have learned through the overturning of Roe with the Dobbs decision that they thought they were pro quote unquote life because they had been raised in a house that said, you know, no matter what. But then they ended up with a complication. They were almost going to lose their lives on a baby that they wanted because they made it seem like abortion was about somebody that was whorish, somebody that was poor, somebody that was a person of color. It wasn't, us good white folk that were just out here. Oh, wait a minute, you're gonna touch my IVF? Wait a minute now. My very expensive IVF, like I paid to make sure I could have a baby, and you're telling me I'm not gonna be, yeah.
And that's the way when you walk rights back, they start
Correct.
there and keep going.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Which is why I'm like, we should have the biggest coalition of people that come out than we've ever seen in this country, because the attacks are not just on trans folk or the LGBTQIA community as a whole. They're not just on black folk. They're on women. They're on immigrants. They're on everybody. Like, if you're not an old, white, rich man, you should be like, well, we got to vote the other way.
Is that why on abortion you did the Abortion Awareness Act, or you
Yes.
introduced? Okay, talk about that so people can be aware.
Yeah, so, it ain't going nowhere, though. But
we got to keep talking about it.
I know. I'm here for it. But, with MAGA Mike, he ain't going to allow none of that to go through. So the Abortion Awareness Act is because right now we have like a hodgepodge of laws throughout the country versus having Roe v. Wade be the law of the land, which meant that, for people that don't understand, Roe v. Wade was a privacy decision. And it was actually a decision out of Dallas, Texas, out of my district. So Henry Wade was the district attorney in Dallas County. And there was a woman who was incarcerated in the jail because she had an abortion. And to be clear, Texas now is trying to move back that way. Texas has people that are lawmakers that are proposing the death penalty for anyone who gets an abortion or participates in making sure that a woman can have an abortion.
And even if her father was to rape her
matter.
and she gets
No
pregnant,
exceptions.
raped on the way home from work.
No exceptions. You can be a little girl. No exceptions.
None.
No exceptions. And now they want the death penalty to apply. And so it's crazy to me that Texas set us on the right trajectory, and Texas was pretty much leading the way to make sure that everything got undone. And so the decision was about whether or not you had a right to privacy that could be interpreted through the Constitution that would disallow the government from coming into the privacy of your medical room and your relationship with your medical doctor. The determination was that you do have a right to privacy that is enshrined in the Constitution that protects you in making decisions about your body. And so overturning that basically says, you know what, it's a threat to privacy as a whole. And so for those that may say, well, I disagree with abortion, you can disagree all you want to. But like, what if there's some other medical condition that you have? What is to prevent the government from coming in and interjecting itself into whatever medical issue you have? It's one of the reasons I did have a little clip that was getting a little traction, because we had the FDA administrator that came before us in oversight. And this is as we're waiting on the mifepristone case to come down, and it had just been argued, or it was about to be argued, one of the two. And I talked about Viagra, because if we're gonna talk about mifepristone, we're gonna talk about Viagra. And so, but like literally like making sure that people that think that this fight doesn't involve them understand that it doesn't stop, that it continues on. And so while you may not understand how our fates are tied, they are. And that is probably the strongest message that I can put out there, is that you don't ever have to agree with my blackness. You don't ever have to agree that I should have autonomy over my body. But what you should be able to agree with is the idea of freedom, and that this country is based upon the ideal of freedom. And it's what makes us stand out from the rest of the world. It is why we are the beacon of hope. It is why we are the leaders of the world. And if we lose our freedoms, whether it's freedom of press, whether it's freedom of speech, whatever freedoms, or literally reproductive freedoms, or whether it's our access to the ballot box, if we lose our freedoms, then who are we? And I think that if we just kind of focus on that I think that people will better understand. That's why I don't really want people to really focus on, do I love this person? Do I agree with this person wholeheartedly? All that kind of stuff. Because I tell people all the time, you don't agree with your spouse all the time, but you stay with them and you love them. So there you go. Like, I mean, you ain't got to agree with Biden all the time, But is he like gonna abuse you like Trump? No. So like, rock out with him.
And this is where like, okay, because I've gone to the White House many times. I've met the president several times. I've met with Kamala privately and have seen her several times. There's a messaging problem coming from the White House. It's not landing. I keep telling them, if you put what Biden has done, what Trump has done, what Biden wants to do, what Trump wants to do on a wall, without saying who's what, any average person will come in and say,
Yeah.
what y'all mean? We going over there.
Yeah.
But then when you put the faces up there, people
Yeah.
go, nah.
Yeah.
It's a message. In my opinion, I think, and this is my criticism, I hold these words, I'm responsible. When you talk about abortion, why wouldn't a Kamala Harris pull you, AOC, and all the strong juniors in a room and have a roundtable conversation about it where we know how it's going to land? We know it's going to hit. Why not?
I don't know.
There's no
I don't
rule.
know what you. No, there's no rule against it. No, I mean, like, no, there's definitely not a rule against it. So we can collaborate and work in any ways that, I mean, we collaborate with the administration all the time. We can do whatever. We don't take lead on those things, for sure. Any lead is going to come from them. We
So
could
it'd be
always do something and invite the vice president, but because it is campaign season, it definitely would be more like, if you want us to do something, we got your back. Just let us know what you want us to do.
Right.
I think there's a lot of ways to approach it. And I think, yes, there's a messaging problem, but also there's a bit of a messenger problem. And I think that people keep blaming the message when really people just don't want to listen to some of the messengers. If I'm just being perfectly honest. Like, I love the president. I have a different relationship than the average American with the president. And so I know that there are sides of him that they just don't know or see. And also I know where his heart is. Does it mean that I will always 1000% agree? It doesn't, but it also is okay. Like, it's okay. Like, I want people to be okay with the fact that they disagree with politicians. You know, one of the things that I say out on the road all the time, especially when they send me to a black church, is I'm like, listen, there's no perfection walking on this earth. And I know y'all know this because y'all sitting in church. And I was like, but we continue to seek perfection in our preachers and our politicians. And they are far from perfect. And when I make people kind of bring us down to size, I think that they receive it a little better, right? And I'm like, it's just like when you dating somebody, it's like pros and cons, child. Like, let me check them off. And, the good outweighs the bad. Now, do people know all of the good? Absolutely not. But I think that some people, when the president starts talking, they just don't listen. Like, they just tune him out. And if it's because he's old or whatever, and I'm like, y'all, we've been having old white men.
He's only 4 years older than Trump, by the way.
No, like, there's not a big difference between the two of them. But I'm like, that's all we ever elected. Like, it's always an anomaly. Like, yes, JFK was young. Like, every once in a while. But I'm like, have y'all looked at the pictures of Ronald Reagan? Ronald Reagan looked like he was 100 years old. Like, I'm like, what the hell?
Obama was young until y'all wore him out.
Exactly. Because he walked in with black hair and walked out with white. So I think that that's also the thing. So some of this is a matter of people are interested in listening to just kind of different messengers as well. And it's one reason that I encourage everyone to take this election specifically and take ownership over it. Don't nobody want to listen to the politicians. Like, they'll listen to their mama, their cousin, their co-worker, or whoever. Like, they'll listen to y'all about y'all's experiences. So I went and talked to my sorority, Delta. We had a regional conference in Austin, Texas, not even a week ago now. And when I went and talked to them, I was like, y'all, I ain't even supposed to do this, because as a lawyer, you're trained to never ask a question you don't know the answer to. And so I said, how many of you had to take out student loans? Which I knew that there probably was a significant number, because it's black women, and if you're a Delta, that means you went to college. So I'm thinking the numbers are gonna be high of who had to take out student loans. So almost the entire room raised their hands. This was the scary part. I said, now I'm gonna ask you to raise your hand if your student loan debt has been relieved. I would say more than a third of the room raised their hand. Now, I was like, just so y'all know, my student loans ain't been relieved, so I was just trusting what they was telling me when they was telling me that they was doing the work. And so I was like, I'm glad to see the work, because I don't know nothing about it, but like, it was a really powerful moment because what I said is, you know, there are those that say, oh, they don't have a black agenda and they not working for black people and not understanding the dynamics, right? Like black people are disproportionately burdened by student loan debt. So if you can remove that debt, then that allows you to do things such as like buy a home, right? And start to build generational wealth. And so knowing that so many people in that room, I said, now how many people have y'all told? Like it's like the pastor tells you, you need to go out and share the good news.
People don't telephone good news; they telephone the
I
bad
know,
news.
I know. But it was, it was flipping it on them to really like give them a moment to kind of sit in it
and question their own.
Yeah, because I'm like, you got to roll to. I give the numbers based on what I've been told by the administration. I ain't got my student loans relieved, so I don't, you know, I mean, it's what they tell me, but like, it hasn't been my story, right? But I'm like, it's a lot more powerful than me as a politician telling you the numbers and telling you that it's been almost $200 billion forgiven and letting you know that it's been over 5 million people that have been the recipients. That's me giving you data. But when you have your neighbor that says, yo, like, I mean, I know you may feel a way about Joe, but like, even with this crazy Supreme Court that stopped him from helping out even more people, we got over $100,000 like off our back that allowed us to have more money. So even though food is higher, even though the cost of housing is higher, we have more money in our pockets because he took this off of our backs. Like, I need you to tell your stories. And literally the next day, I had a few people on Facebook that was like, yo, the Congresswoman told us we needed to sell. And I didn't know their individual stories, but they literally tagged me and they were telling their stories. And so I just want to encourage people because those are going to be the best messengers. The people that have a testimony about how their life has been improved and changed because this administration decided to do something that honestly has never been done.
Yeah, but I think too, like one thing Charlamagne said to me, I remember I went to the Breakfast Club to co-host with him and he goes, I said, yeah, me and DJ Envy and Angela Lee, we were just at the White House. And he goes, the minute you give those folks your opinion, the minute you don't agree with them, watch how they treat you. And I kind of laughed it off. Oh, Charlamagne, quit being a hater. And I spent a couple of years building relationships with them. And then one day I gave my opinion. And it's not them. And I had to really check myself because I don't get to check out at being a part of the democratic process because I get mad at a person. I can't get mad at the principles if the bubble around them is the problem.
Yes.
That's me though, having been, you know, and I just really feel like I keep telling the DNC, y'all need to do a democracy or die campaign. Like y'all need to really start getting to the hearts of people who understand it's not about who you like more than the other. It's what type of world do you want to live in and your kids? Because, you know, when you travel around the world, when you go to another world, they judge you based on your president, your politics, how you treat people coming in your country, and they don't get that lens that some of us do.
No, all of that is so powerful because people don't understand, and I even had to adjust a lot. Like I struggle a lot because coming from the state level, my budget was like $13,000 a month. So that was to pay for whatever office we had. That was to pay all my staff. That was to send all the letters. That was to do everything.
13,000.
Correct.
What can you do with that?
Correct.
Wait, 13,000 a month or a year?
A month.
What do you
that was my budget for like the office, right? And so now I have a $2 million budget. So
for your office?
Yes. Oh. So in the congressional offices, we get a budget of $2 million. Now our travel back and forth from where we live to DC, that actually comes out of that budget as well. So it's kind of weird. So anyway, nevertheless, but clearly I didn't have that many employees because $13,000 wasn't gonna get me very far. And so I ended up with a lot bigger staff now on the federal level. And as you continue to move up, you end up kind of having handlers everywhere. And people look at you and feel a way, and it's like, no. There are handlers, you know, you refer to them as the bubble, and it is tough to get that right mix. And I stay in the fight to make sure that, like, you're not doing what you want to do. You doing what you know I'm about. Like, you need to mesh with me versus me trying to mesh with you. And so we've struggled ourselves. Like, if I'm being, like, completely honest, with some of the bubble that's around them.
And what is that bubble there for? Is it to protect you? Is it to guide you?
It's just because you can't do everything. I mean, like, now, I went from representing 177,000 people to 766,000 people. I can't do all this stuff by myself. Like, I have to have a whole team that's handling, whether it's calls on cases or whether it's preparing me for committees or whether it's making sure I got flights to get everywhere I'm going. Like, I can't do all this stuff by myself. And so your role actually becomes a lot more diminished. When you only have a budget of 13,000, oh, you all in. Like, I mean, because you ain't got nobody. Like, it's basically you running this thing by yourself. And so, like, when you start to talk about, like, the president and the vice president, it is completely different. Because now you're talking about, really, like, people look at us and they say, as president of the United States, this is the world leader. It is bigger than just the United States. I will tell you that the vice president has been consistent on, and I think it's maybe because she's done, like, all these levels of government, versus the president. He started off as a senator, right? Like, he started off as a big deal. The vice president, though, started off as a prosecutor, which is the lower level. And then she went statewide, and then she went statewide again, and then she's vice president. She always tries to tap in. So she has her bubble, but literally the vice president, well, she at least has called me, but, like, she'll tap in. Like, she'll want to do, like, a dinner at the vice president's home and sit down and talk about things. So she'll pull different people in.
Well, she sat down with, she's given me a very intimate audience to talk about the lens in which we see politics in the world from black media. So I know that she's very much accessible. And, and both of them have been accessible.
Yeah, she definitely tries to, and what people don't know is, hell, if Joe didn't have the team, honey, he would talk to everybody forever. I mean, like, he's literally that guy. Like, for the people that think about they pawpaw, that's him.
And he loves to cuss.
He loves all the things. I will tell you, it was when they came out with that report and they were saying that, the president was senile or whatever the hell. I was like, listen, is he a criminal mastermind that needs to be impeached, or is he senile? Because he cannot be both.
Right.
But I will tell you that his memory is so much sharper than mine. Like, I'm like, I can't remember what all I did last week, but he will tell you, I remember he took a small group of us into the Oval Office, and he just started telling us, like, all these different stories from when he was vice president, or, during his presidency, or even before that, and telling us, like, the history of different things, like the little compartment that is in the desk there, and I guess it was JFK's kid that was anyway, but, like, he remembers all this, and he talks about different experiences that he had with Obama and being in that space with them, and I mean, he really is sharp. He's still 80 something, but I'm like, y'all don't be talking about Nancy. But Nancy is just as old or older, and so is Auntie Maxine.
But the difference, I think, Nancy, she'll get out there on them cameras and let you have it, whereas he won't. He likes to do the work.
She will. But here's the deal: if you really think about who Joe was, especially for Barack, he was the attacker. Like, that was like Joe, and like, Obama was always the cool, smooth, gonna give you the best speech. Like, that was who he was. That ain't never been Joe. Like, Joe has always been, like, every time I would think about Scranton and him talking about Scranton, I would think about Scrappy Joe from Scranton, right? Like, because he wasn't extra polished and things like that. And I think that once he ascended to the presidency, the bubble was like, well, you gotta be this now, though, because now you're the president. And honestly, he does best when he's just Joe.
Every time I see the president, he says, this is literally his words, so you know, nice fucking suit. And I laugh. And so this last time I saw him at the White House, he had invited 50 of us over there. He walks up and he doesn't comment on my suit. I said, I'm highly offended you didn't comment on my suit. He goes, you didn't give me a chance. But I love that, like, that's the Joe I want people to see. And when I tell people, I'm like, listen, what you're asking him to be is not what you're even asking of Donald Trump to be.
Yeah.
Like, the bar is raised so high for him when he's done a lot of the good work that we know. The one thing I think that's missing, well, let me ask you this. Like, my mother, she struggled with drugs, and I feel like when his son was struggling with drugs, he should have leaned into the addiction, like my son, your family, you know, because we all have a member in our family who's going through real shit. Why do you feel they're afraid to do that?
Yeah, I had a viral moment literally on that issue where I in a committee, you know, where they were attacking because it was on the impeachment and it was all about Hunter. It was like nude photos from MTG of Hunter. It was all these things. And I said something to the effect of, I wish my parents loved me half as much. And I talked about like the only thing that he's been guilty of is being a father, right? And loving his child. And, you know, again, people don't understand how handlers, I push back a lot, right? Because I'm still used to being that one woman shop, right? So I push back a lot. And I also don't think that they are used to somebody like me. So I'm like, there's not really some form for what to do with me. So I push back a lot. With the president, we have advisors for everything. You know, people don't understand that on the federal level, at least in the House, we usually get polling no less than once a month, usually at least twice a month.
That's telling you how you're performing?
It tells us a lot of stuff. It depends on what they polled for, but we have pollsters, and a lot of what you see that happens is based on what polling says. And it's on both sides. And so, you know, because people feel a way about the border and because it's complicated to talk about immigration and they know that like we are not going to have like some one word answer for immigration, Republicans push hard on immigration.
The border
problem
meaning
is
at Mexico?
Yes.
But immigration is not just Mexicans, it's people that fly in too.
You didn't think, oh.
But why do they do, but why don't they, this is the thing that pisses me
I
off.
thought they had to come through the Mexican border.
But this is the thing that bothers me about the conversations when I watch the news, and this is why I just could be clicking off. You know, when you talk about build the wall, can you build it from the people come from London, from Canada? I have a friend.
It don't even matter. It don't even matter because guess what? There's these things called tunnels. There's also these things called ladders. Like none of that matters. None of it matters.
Wait, I have to give a shout out to my friend Obi from Canada, who's banned in Canada because he overstayed his welcome. Immigration ain't just Mexico, it's Canada, it's all these other countries. And I'm sure if you did the numbers, it's probably more people in this country that took planes to get here and stayed unlawfully or whatever. Why do they make it just all about, is it just a soundbite?
Because here's the deal. You know this. But it's very easy to demonize what somebody can see. Like, do you see the planes with the illegal immigrants? Not unless my governor put them on one of the planes, right? Like, I mean, like you don't see that, right? So they take the visual of these people and say they're invading, the invasion is here. And so they fearmonger, and Democrats want to really explain as well as talk about being compassionate, as well as talk about the benefits that immigrants actually bring to our country from a financial standpoint. So when everybody is complaining to me about how much food costs, I'm like, do you really want to talk about it? Because we can talk about it. Because like last time I checked, you're not sending your kids to go work on the farm.
But they did that in California. The Latinos in California said, we're going to do one day where we're not going to go to work.
As they should.
One day. Shut this state. It was so beautiful to watch them shut it down.
As they should.
Yeah.
As they should. But like people don't, like literally we have an educational gap. Like people don't understand, like I get that you go to the grocery store and get your food, right? But it had to grow somewhere,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so I'm like, who do you think working on the farms? Because you sending your kid to college, like who is working on the farms? So when you have like immigrants and you're like demonizing them, I'm like, these are the people that are making sure that you can eat and not spend $1 million. Because when you only have a limited supply of laborers, that means the cost of labor goes up. And ain't nobody going to cut their profits for you. What they gonna do is pass it along to you. So like even the migrant crisis absolutely is having an impact on the cost of our food. And even when we look at restaurants and some of our favorite restaurants disappearing, you know, COVID was really difficult for us. But like now, like I've got people in hospitality, I've got people in restaurants, I've got people all over there, like we need workers and we need kind of the low wage kind of in workers, but they don't have the people. And so I'm like, yeah, like if y'all do the research and look at Japan and look at what happened to them when they tried to shut down immigration is actually really good for your economy. And they don't, instead they demonize. It's easy enough to demonize. It's easy enough to blame everything on the immigrants when they're like, oh, well, y'all passing out money to them. And it's like, it's not really that simple, but okay, right? Like, it's tough, but what they need to do is say, hey, what are y'all going to do to make sure that when these people come, you don't have to use my tax dollars to help them, but instead, they're ready to work. So get them some work visas so that they can contribute to our economy. They're going to pay taxes. Exactly. They're going to pay taxes, but they're not going to get retirement. They're not going to get Social Security. Like, okay, like this is a win for y'all. Like this is a win. You have more people paying into a system that everybody's like is going to collapse. Like it helps in every way. And instead, it's just like Republicans like, look at them. They taking your jobs. They taking all of your housing that you don't have. Like none of this is just terrible.
Well, I haven't had an immigrant take my job, so I don't know nothing about that. I think that's all propaganda. You know what else is crazy is immigration should stop being painted brown. Like every time we talk about immigration, you're talking about a Mexican kid in a cage. You're talking about a Mexican person crossing the border. When we all know Mexicans and people of Latino descent are not the only immigrants. There's a lot of you who look like my mama, white. Okay, so
Trump's wife, just Obama, just okay, but go ahead. But go ahead. These are facts.
It's true though.
It is.
Is Marjorie Taylor Greene racist?
Yes.
A racist.
Yes.
When she was yelling at the president when he walked in to give the,
State of the Union.
State of the Union. See, she knows all this. I'm learning. I'm gonna only be councilman. I ain't giving no State of the Union. Which I thought was a great speech, by the way.
He did.
Her yelling at him even acknowledging her and going over to speak to her using a person as a weapon for her own racism. What kind of bubble does she have around her telling her you shouldn't? Is her bubble telling her that's what you should be doing? Because it's almost like just pure craziness.
She gets positive reinforcement in the form of money. She is the
campaign contributions.
Yes, she is the fifth largest fundraising member of the Republican Party.
Because she's that dog in the fight that they want to be saying the things that she's saying.
And it's, yes and no. She's also the most despised person in the U.S. Congress. According to polling, she's the most disliked. But there's, people that's willing to get $2 at every little crevice of the country to her. And so she raises money by being ignorant. I don't believe that there's a consolidation of support for her in her district, but it is a Republican district. And because she's able to bank so much cash, there's not any Republicans that think that they could actually take her out because she has a war chest that's built up. It's not built up from people from her district, though. It's built up from random little whoever's.
But how is she spending the money? Because after your bleached, blonde, built, botched body, she was seen at an airport standing against a wall without security, and somebody one of our fans.
No, so she did. So
she had security?
She did.
Oh, she did.
So they were plain clothes. I knew who it was. So they were in plain clothes. Capitol Police escorts us. So they're
to the airport, to the planes?
When we're at the airport. Because that's the only time that we're really alone. Like, we don't have our staff and things like that. And so they will escort us, but they're always in plain clothes.
But do they receive you when you land? Do you get received by police?
It just depends on where you go. So, like, when I got to L.A., the L.A. system is we don't even walk through the bridge. As soon as we get off the plane, somebody's there, and we go down steps, the same steps where they bring your little luggage up if you had to gate check your luggage. We go up there, and someone from the airport actually takes us to a secure location where a car is waiting for you, whoever your staff is waiting for you. So every place is different, but it's always the airport where we're most vulnerable because unless your staff is actually catching a plane, they're not with you.
See, my security would have snatched that phone, but your security can't do that, right? Because
no, I mean they're just they're just there to make sure that you don't physically
freedom of speech.
Yeah, well, no, they're literally there to protect us physically.
Yeah.
Not to protect like our image or anything. Like
but
it's
when you
literally
see her go viral, by your fan or my fan or our fans, the people, running down on her, did you giggle or did you say, oh, that ain't right?
No, I giggled. Actually, I gaggled. Like I was, it was funny because one of my friends who actually lives out here, she's the one that sent it to me, and she was like, I'm sure this will make you smile. And it did. It was pretty funny. It was funny because she really puts on this persona like she's so tough. And I think that you saw in real life that she's not about this life. So she really needs to just kind of keep her mouth shut because she was very quiet and timid.
Wait, so she went on her Instagram. She posted a video of her. You have her in the gym now. She's lifting weights, squatting with these big plates. And she said, yes, my body is built and strong, not with nips, tucks, plastic, or silicone, but through a healthy lifestyle. Soon turning 50 years old, you look much older. God willing, I will continue to lift, run, swim, play sports, surf, ski, climb, and live this life to the fullest. Enjoy every single moment.
Yeah.
So you actually inspired her to go back to the gym.
I don't know about that, but actually in the hearing, one of the parts that doesn't get played is, mind you, I never said her name.
Mm-hmm.
I never said her name. I just posed a question.
Wait, Jasmine, hold on. I'm gonna tell you, I watched this so many times. When you asked the question, you knew you were reading her for pure entire filth in the nicest way, but it was the guy next to the chair who caught
Jamie.
it first.
Yeah.
Cause he giggled, he caught it. And then he said, what did you say? And he let you do it again. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no, so right after the exchange, she knew I was talking about her, right? So she goes, I think I look great. I am almost 50. And I just didn't say anything.
Spoiled
so
milk.
so she knew immediately what it was.
So now so your shirt, the words are in what looks to be the LGBT colors.
Yes.
I know
we dropped Pride today.
There was a rumor online that they thought the butch, not rumor, somebody put something out, a tweet that they thought the butch was in response to the gay community. I said the way she read for Phil, that was a gay man in a black woman's body. But I love that you're dropping this for Pride because we are in Pride Month. Why, how important is it for inclusion and representation?
Oh, it's beyond important. Again, I talked about the coalition, right? And as a civil rights lawyer, I just don't think that I could be me without fighting for everyone. And, there are those that say you can only fight for this group or that group. And that's not what I subscribe to. I fight for equity and equality across the board. And so I actually represent the gayborhood. Mm-hmm. It's in my district in Dallas.
Gayborhood.
The gayborhood, in Dallas. Oakland.
Yeah. I'll be there.
Yeah, no, it's great. It's great. I actually live in the gayborhood, actually. So, I just don't think that we can talk about repro rights and then not talk about the LGBTQIA community because, again, it's not about just attacking one right. It's about what right comes next, right? And I do think that this very corrupt court that we have, this stolen court, as you mentioned, because it was the Senate, because the Senate is the only one that can confirm justices. And it was Mitch McConnell, who I call Glitchy Mitch, because, he was struggling a little bit. But anyway,
How can a man have 2 strokes, 3 strokes, alleged strokes
on camera,
be returned back to the camera and just keep, they don't even care about their own to say, sit down, Uncle Mitch,
Listen, because he will go down in history as really potentially the one that orchestrated the mechanism to be able to tear us apart. Mm-hmm. He will have that role solidified because he made up a bootleg rule. Democrats were like, okay. And then he, of course, flipped the script when it was Trump. And so it's a matter of, well, were you supposed to get the Merrick Garland seat? Okay, if you were supposed to get the Merrick Garland seat, then that means that you didn't get the Amy Coney Barrett seat. What happened? So at a maximum, honestly, Trump should have only had 1 appointment, I think. But,
to the Supreme Court?
Yes, but what they did is they forced one out.
Right.
And what people aren't talking about is that they want to do the same thing again with 2 justices, is force 2 out so that they can then put in some younger people for lifetime appointments.
How
and
do we
have
get Clarence
5
Thomas out?
justices. He would be one of the 2. Him and Alito are the 2 that they're trying to get out, but to install maybe some, 30-year-old for a lifetime. That is not good. Like
Right.
Clarence is on the other side. I
Right.
mean, he closer to the upper room than not. So, like someday, he will pass on. But like starting off with somebody really young is a problem for a lifetime. So, I'm a part of the court reform task force, and so we've got a couple of bills, and one of the bills is instituting an 18-year term limit on our Supreme Court justices instead of doing these lifetime appointments. Also expanding the court, and also instilling some form of ethics on the court so that we can hopefully get a court that people can believe in. You don't necessarily have to agree with it, but you can follow them logically when they come up with the precedents that they're coming up with. And people can truly say, okay, well, at least we know Clarence gonna be out in a minute. Whether he survives or not, his 18 is coming. Like we could do something like
Right.
that. Yeah.
Uvalde, so that's in Texas.
Yeah.
All those young people murdered in schools. I can't believe we live in a country where people can literally just run into school and shoot up and kill a bunch of kids, and the country not do something to really prioritize gun control. I love my guns. I am a gun owner, and I believe that we should have the right to bear arms. But why is it that Texas, it always seems like it's never on the right side of gun law conversations?
Yeah, I can't really figure that one out either. I went into my freshman term in the House, and it was right after the El Paso shooting, which was huge, mass shooting down there at the Walmart. And so, I thought this is going to be a session where we actually figure some things out and we do some things to kind of move the needle forward on gun reform. As a licensed carrier myself, I was like, all right, y'all can know I'm a Democrat, but I'm licensed to carry. I have guns. Like, it's all good. I'm not anti-guns. It's about being smart about guns. And in that session, instead of doing something smart, they actually went the other way. And they allowed for permitless carry. And so they expanded access to firearms.
So anybody can carry now?
Yeah, you don't have to have a license at all. They said it was too burdensome to have people have to go get a license. Now, you got to still get a license to drive a car. But carrying a gun? Oh, no. That's too much. And this was, as we had law enforcement that was opposing this. Like, they were coming, they were testifying, they were like, this is terrible and whatnot. So we go through that session. We get out of session. We end up with Uvalde. And in fact, it wasn't just Uvalde. We saw a spike in gun violence. So the numbers are clear that they made us less safe. And people keep voting them in over and over and over. And
What does that say about America, though?
I
That's
think
the frustrating part. It's like you want to just put your arms around America's neck, but that ain't democracy.
I think it's just people don't connect the dots. And there's not very many people trying to connect the dots for them, right? Like, they just look at it, especially if you have some random Republican, they're like, oh, he was a bad guy. But they're not talking about the fact that there was an opportunity where they could have, passed laws that would have raised the age and said, you can't have this type of weapon if you are, under the age of 18. This particular shooter had actually tried to purchase a firearm at 17 and was unable to do so. And he was so dedicated to it that he went back and was able to do it when he was 18. And, the fact that you are okay with, and I think we also run into the it'll never happen to me syndrome. Mm-hmm. Like, oh, that's over there. That will never happen to me. And gun violence is so prevalent right now that even when I travel the world on official business, and we've talked about some of our exchange programs and things like that, and we've tried to ask, and I love when I'm out of the country with my Republican colleagues, and we'll ask questions like, so talk to us about like exchange programs and like why we aren't seeing as many exchange students and this and that. And number one is the cost of education in America has skyrocketed, number one, which Democrats are trying to work on, but we don't have any help from the other side. Number two is gun violence. They are fearful that their kids are going to die if they send them to America. That's how prevalent it's become. And it's affecting us on the global stage. But like, these aren't the conversations that anybody has time for. We just spend all of our time watching Trump go to trial and then giving the money that we don't have to him to pay his lawyers. That's what we're doing in this country. And it is the most ass backwards thing I have ever seen.
What do you think about America being tired of us sending money to Israel?
I understand. I also think that if people are going to vote as it relates to foreign affairs, which typically is not how people vote. People typically vote based on how are the gas prices treating me right now, how are my housing costs treating me right now, what's my job situation looking like. Those are the things that typically drive our elections and how people decide how they're going to vote. When you start talking about foreign affairs, if that is going to be kind of like the precipice for determining whether you vote or who you vote for, then I want people to really dig in to foreign affairs, right? Like, and ask the question, which I think is a fair question. I think it's a fair question of all the money, is to ask the question of, well, why do we send money to Israel? Like, what is that about? And learn about the fact that this is an allyship that existed before I was around, before, well, no, the president was a baby. He was still around though. But it is an enduring relationship and learning the history of the region in and of itself. And I would argue that the most disputed land in the world is that land. And it goes beyond the Palestinians and the Israelis, but I mean, you can go back to the Romans. You can go back to like all the wars and fights that have existed in this land, and you know, trying to explain to people that are really frustrated and absolutely have every right to be, because I think anybody that's okay with war may be a little off in some way, because war is never pretty, and there are always innocent lives that are lost, whether it's, you know, at the numbers that we've seen in Gaza or not. Like, I take issue with loss of innocent lives, no matter where they are, including in this country, right? And I do think that we have failed to open a real conversation on what does foreign affairs look like and how much money do we really spend on foreign affairs, because what happens is we do things like, oh, we're sending X amount of billions here, we're sending X amount of billions there. And one of the things that I try to do is contextualize for people. And I tell them, and I ask them, do you know how big our budget is? Nobody knows how big our budget is. And so I told them, when it comes to foreign aid, we spend 1% of our entire budget on foreign aid. But when you start talking about numbers that people don't have in their own bank accounts, like, I can't count to $1 trillion, which we have a multi-trillion-dollar budget, right? Like, when you start talking about millions or billions, they're just like, that's a lot of money, because that's more money than I have. But my question that I really want people to ask is, what you doing with that other 99%? Like, I mean, feel however you want to about the 1%, but the big question is, what is going on with the other? If that represents 1%, where the hell is the other 99%? But what they like to do is throw out the big numbers and then say, well, that money could be going to this or that. And it's like, do you realize that's only 1% of our budget? And they want you to fight over scraps and be like, oh, no. What you need to be asking is, where you sending the rest of my money? Because, like, I'm not going to stress as much about my $1 as I am my 99. And I don't think we've done a good job of contextualizing that, as well as I think that here recently we are seeing a clearer delineation, and we never forecast our foreign affairs. We never do, for a lot of reasons. But we're seeing that there's kind of this rift that exists between Netanyahu and the president. And
well, they say Netanyahu's a lot like Trump.
Okay, so since you want to talk about it, So one of the scariest things for me, if I'm being like 1,000 right now, which my team will beat me up about this later, but if I'm being 1,000 about this, when you think about, and because of the conversations that I've had, if the United States says we will throw away our 75 plus year relationship with Israel because we don't like their leader, then if we end up with Trump, we set a precedent for all these other allies to throw us away, because I have heard from other ally nations that they don't fucking like Trump, right? If we lose our allies, now I'm looking at the vulnerability of us, the people that elected me, and I am concerned about whether or not, like, we live in a bubble. You talk about bubbles, we live in a bubble. Because on both sides of us, we got water, and north and south, we got pretty decent friends, right? Like, we closer with the people up north than we are the people down south, but either way, we got friends on both sides, right? That don't mean that we are liked in this world. Like, a lot of people hate us. But it's about being able to flex. Like, oh, do you want to play with us? It's like, think about, like, those people that used to go to your school and they had, like, the biggest family. They had all the brothers and sisters. If you decided you was going to fight one, you was going to have to fight the whole family.
Right.
So you, like, forget that, I ain't finna do that, right? But, like, if it's just one kid, we may go jump you, right? That's the difference. And so for a lot of us, it's history. It's also thinking through possibilities in the future. And those are the conversations that nobody really wants to have and talk about. But it will set a certain precedent for allies potentially leaving us if we were to disagree and just be like, well, we don't like your leader. It's all about the relationship between the people and the countries. It's not about who their democracy elected. Because frankly, I have heard from a lot of leaders, and they were like, we thought y'all had lost y'all mind. And so once we got Joe Biden back, they were like, okay, y'all back on track. And now they like, what are y'all doing? And I'm like, child, I don't know.
Well, one of the challenges I know another conversation people don't want to have is that we are sending aid to Israel in the midst of what people online have called a genocide, when we know there's a genocide happening in the Congo that we don't even want to acknowledge or talk about. Is it because those people...
Sir, I think it's time for me to go.
Well, because, listen.
No, so...
I know, because we could be here all day. I know we don't have all day, but,
okay. So I was alluding to this, but you just decided to go there. If we're going to make our decisions based on foreign affairs, then you got to dig in. Foreign affairs is not limited to this, and that is not to minimize what is taking place. But especially for Black folk that have gotten so enthralled in this fight, I really want them to dig. I want them to learn. Like, I think that there is an opportunity to educate people not only on the history of Israel and the fights and things like that, but also on what's not only going on in the Congo, what's going on in Sudan, also Libya, as well as for people to just kind of go back just a little bit to Haiti, right? Because you talked about the border, and I remember vividly the Haitians trying to cross into our country. And it was my governor that put officers on horseback and were whipping them in the water. And there was a lack of outrage. Like, the world did not come to Haiti's aid. And nobody asked, why is it that Haitians, because again, they always think if you're coming across that border, then you must be Mexican. Like, they don't realize that it's all these other countries, but nevertheless. And so no one ever asked the question, what's going on with the Haitians? And that was a couple of years ago. And no one decided to do the research and find out that their president had been assassinated, that the gangs had started to take over, like that there had been a destabilization, and understanding that 1% of money that I talk about, like the foreign aid that we send out, that goes to help stabilize other economies, stabilize other communities so that they don't feel the need. So when people are like, oh, our dollar, but like, I'm like, if you go visit some of these places, you do realize that our dollar goes so much further, right? So it is cheaper for us to send money somewhere else and make sure that they have their own economies. And we just need to engage in trade. We need to make sure that they can build their own middle classes there. And it benefits us in this entire world. This is why we are world leaders, but we don't talk about foreign affairs. Like, it's not what we do. Like, we don't talk about the genocide that is literally occurring in multiple places on the African continent. And the world is absent. So I'm like, if anybody should be concerned in doing a little bit of digging and research, it should be the descendants of those Africans that are sitting here in this country, and you should be raising your voices. So, you know, when you talk about the money being sent over, one of the stories that gets lost is that the only time that Democrats supported money going over, that was in an aid package that not only was for Israel, but it was also for the people of Gaza. Because the Republicans had introduced a bill. The first bill they introduced was to send money to Israel and defund the IRS. The second bill was just to send money.
So they slipped that in the language so that way?
This was the first bill, but don't nobody talk about that because the Democrats are the whole problem with the whole war, but whatever. I'm just telling you the facts, and they can go Google it. So the first bill, there were 3 aid packages that, and all of them passed out the House. It was the Democratic Senate. It was Schumer that would not bring them to the floor. So the Republicans, they're the ones that put the bills on the floor. The first bill was to defund the IRS, send money to Israel. The second one was to just send money to Israel, but not defund the IRS. The third one, the one that Schumer actually took up and said, we will take it, was the one where it said, we will send money to Israel, but we will also send aid to the people of Gaza. But it wasn't just to the people of Gaza. It was money to the Sudan. It was money to the Haitians. It was money to the Congo. Like, it was actually more than just the people of Gaza. It was trying to help out in situations that we know are happening and taking place. And, you know, is it everything that we would have wanted? Absolutely not. But we don't control the House. The Republicans do. But by standing together to the best of our ability as Democrats, we were able to get something better. Because if the Republicans had their way, the people of Gaza, the people of the Congo, the people of Haiti, the people of, they wouldn't have anything. They would not support them. And that's where we're going to get. So if your heart is aching and bleeding for people that are struggling to just literally be able to survive another day, let me tell you that the Republicans have said things on the floor, and I wish these clips would go viral. Things such as, just go ahead and nuke them. They literally want to, oh yeah, we'll find you the clip.
They say that in public?
On the floor. And nobody, I'm like, where are all the protesters when they out here saying this stuff? They have said that. Nuke them. Nuke them. You saw Haley went over and was signing the bombs that they were going to, I mean, like, what are you doing? Like, I mean, it's wild. And I'm like, it's not to say that I want people, that I believe that people will ever necessarily agree with how this administration is dealing with the war. It's not my goal. My goal is to educate people on how much worse it can be, and that your tax dollars, if the Republicans are allowed to take the House, the Senate, and the White House, your tax dollars will literally go for like the decimation of a people.
The House just passed that they're going to mandate everybody to go to the draft, sign up for the draft. Who is responsible? Who over there?
Okay.
No, but this is the last question. I know, because look, I could literally sit with you all day, because as much as I love the tea, and for me, spilling the tea is the truth. Let's be very clear. It's the tea is the truth, and I feel like you are the truth. But I could sit with you all day. We don't have all day, but I want to ask you just the House. How?
Okay, so it's a little different. Okay. So it's my understanding that there's always been a requirement for people to sign up for a selective service or something.
At the age of 18.
At the age of 18. It's always, I don't think they've been enforcing it, right? Because they ain't drafting nobody. But considering where we are in this country right now, who knows? Because we don't have a ton of people that are just volunteering to like go and serve, right? And so what they decided to do, because I don't think that there's actually been enforcement, is they decided to make the registration automatic. Now, we can't get automatic voter registration, but they wanted to make the registration so that they got their rolls.
So why don't you come up with a bill that says, fine, you get automatic registration, register into the service, but you got to automatically register to vote. Can't we make a bill for that?
I mean, we could, but they ain't gonna pass it.
Right.
Yeah, they ain't gonna pass it. And what's interesting is that the Republicans want to do this, but they praise the guy that dodged the draft.
Listen.
So I'm like,
Here's how we're going to protect you, because at this show right now is where we would go into games that would get us in a lot of trouble. Dr. Moon is sitting over there rolling her eyes. I'm not going to put you in that. But we can't. So there's so many rules about buying this shirt. Like, can you?
The clapbackcollection.com. That's where you can find them.
We know where it is. Come over here real quick, Marina and Johnny. We know where it is because we bought the shirt.
Yay!
Come stand over here. Yeah. You could have went that way, but whatever.
Yes, we just rolled out the Pride edition. So,
For
yes,
all
support.
Of us, okay? Go to the clapbackcollection.com and get the shirts right now, because that is really supporting democracy. She just told you what she's making. We ain't giving her no raises out of the gut because we pay for it, right?
Yeah. No, we're not doing raises, and this money doesn't come to my pockets.
And we
at
can't
all.
even give you gifts. Like,
no, $50 is the cap. They ain't adjusted that for inflation either, honey.
by the way, I think it adds insult to injury when your body is built is the way you are, and you look so beautiful, and you go ahead and call the girl the beach spot, whatever. I can't even say it. Okay, look, your dream to be first black senator in Texas. That's your dream.
We'll see. I don't know.
Or the first black female president. Well, we still have Kamala, but not.
I don't.
Listen, I said it. No, I look, or maybe second.
No. I honestly, I don't know that. I mean, the larger the position, the bigger coalition you have to build. I do think that there are those that believe that my coalition has been limited to maybe young people or black people, and it's just not true. But I also just don't think that this country would ever be accepting of somebody who is just as raw as I am, like as real as I am, not on the Democratic side. Like if I was a Republican, then it's like, oh yeah, but like I just don't think that the system that exists within the Democratic construct would allow for a person like me to ever go that far. And it's okay, because again, it's the higher you go, the bigger the headaches go, right?
They said that one day about Obama, though. They've said over the decades, over the years, they have said there will never be, there will never be, there will never be. I mean, to see Hillary go against Donald was iconic. To see her lose was ridiculous. But to see her run, right? So, like, I think this generation is ready for... I get why they like Trump. I don't agree why they like Trump, but I get it because of the world we live in now. But I feel like you're giving us what he's given, but with intelligence, with like the education to back it up, the heart in the work, like you're fighting for the right thing. I don't know that they'll never be ready.
We'll see. But right now I'm in the House.
Yeah. Okay, and then you'll be in the Senate, and then you'll be at the White House. Okay. And look, that was no dig at Kamala. I thank you for coming on the show. I'm gonna get her out of here before we get in trouble. Thank you. Keep fighting for us, and we're gonna keep having you back.
Absolutely.
All right, give it up for Jasmine Crockett. Hey, thanks so much for watching the Jason Lee Show. To watch more episodes like that, click right here, and if you want to see more, subscribe below and click that notification bell.